Welcome to Spectrum Sundays. I am Francesca D'Alessandro, Miss Thousand Islands of New York, serving my community through AAA appreciation and awareness for autism. I am also a speech-language pathologist with a master's degree from the University at Buffalo.
And I am Megan Sinisi, Miss Pennsylvania 2021 and the founder of a nonprofit organization for autism titled From a New Perspective. I am also a speech-language pathologist with a master's degree from the University of Missouri.
Everyone deserves to feel accepted and included in every space that they walk in. Our series aims to inspire you to advocate for yourself and on behalf of your loved ones. And we are so grateful that you're here with us today.
Emma Broyles is a junior in Barrett, the Honors College at Arizona State University, where she studies biomedical sciences and voice performance with a dream of becoming a dermatologist. Emma currently holds the title of Miss Alaska 2021 and will compete at the 100th anniversary of Miss America alongside our co-host Megan here this December. As a sibling of an individual with an intellectual disability and as the daughter of a special education teacher, Emma became an advocate for people with intellectual disabilities at a young age. Her involvement with Special Olympics began when she was just 7 years old, and since then she has been a coach and a president of the largest Special Olympics program in Alaska and has helped to develop lifelong supporters of the Special Olympics. So we're really excited to have you on here, Emma. And we're very hopeful that some of our viewers will find your story incredibly inspiring and check you out throughout our series and our episodes together.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Of course. And congratulations on your title as Miss Alaska 2021. It's so exciting. And it feels like it's been a long time coming for all of the local title holders who were competing at state. And now you're going to be competing at Miss America, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So what do you hope to accomplish now as Miss Alaska, and how can our viewers assist in your efforts?
Yeah, so my goal really is to utilize my platform to help grow the outreach of Special Olympics. And ultimately, I hope to create lifelong volunteers and supporters of the program. Another really important aspect of my social impact initiative is communities, is that I really want to cultivate strong communities that will accept and advocate for those who have intellectual disabilities.
Absolutely. That aligns so nicely with what Francesca and I do in our own communities as well, which is another reason that we were so excited to invite you here on Spectrum Sundays. We focus a lot on autism, but the disability community is so large and it's a spectrum of all abilities within them. So it's amazing to hear that you're partnered directly with one of the largest organizations that empower those with special needs and disabilities to grow themselves and to gain all these valuable skills in their life. So obviously you mentioned that you have a sibling with an intellectual disability. So this has been a part of your life and your advocacy role has just been ingrained in you. So tell us about how the disability community has had an impact on your life.
Yeah, so I would, it really is cliche as it may sound. This community has shaped me into the person that I am today. And I've learned so much, including how to be more patient, how to be more empathetic and more open-minded. And these are traits that, have played a significant role in every other aspect of my life. So it's really just made me into the person that I am today. And so I'm very, very fortunate that I've had the opportunity to be involved with this community.
I love how you said that those traits and characteristics that you've learned have helped you in every other aspect of your life, because I think we can all benefit from having that trait of being patient and understanding and empathetic with one another, regardless of ability or disability. And you mentioned earlier that your brother has an intellectual disability. So can you tell us a little bit more what your relationship is like with him and what you wish other people understood better about people like him? And by the way, his name is Brendan for our viewers. So how is your relationship like with Brendan?
Yeah, so my older brother Brendan has Down syndrome. He's about 2 years older than me, and I also have a younger brother Ben. And my brother Brendan and I are incredibly close. And in fact, Ben and Brendan and I, collectively, we have an incredibly strong bond, which I attribute that to our shared experiences when it comes to having a family member who has a disability. And I really hope that someday people would understand that people with intellectual disabilities are just like everybody else. They have dreams, they have goals, and they contribute to society the same as anyone else would. And so that's something that I really hope that other people would understand.
Absolutely. And Francesca and I don't know if you know this or not, Emma, but we're both speech pathologists. So there are a lot of our clients do end up having Down syndrome, and they need to develop skills in speech and communication. In my experience, I had a little kiddo as a client that had Down syndrome, and he was just as happy as could be. And it always made my day to be able to work with him. And I actually just shared a Facebook post of a father who had Down syndrome raising a child that didn't end up having a disability. But I think that's amazing to share. And I'm sure you would love to see your brother have those same experiences that everybody else thrives through and aspires to have. So, another aspect of that, and the reason I share that Facebook story, is that a lot of self advocacy goes into people with disabilities and Down syndrome being able to empower themselves, but also prove that they have a place in the world. So self-advocacy has been on the rise, and especially with different disability empowerment movements developing, how has your advocacy goals kind of evolved over time to help support self-advocacy too?
Yeah, that is a fantastic question, and I think that it's so incredibly relevant too. It was once very common for people to feel the need to advocate for those who can advocate for themselves, and I certainly felt that obligation as somebody who was advocating for those with intellectual disabilities. But now I think we're definitely gearing more towards providing people with intellectual disabilities the necessary tools so that they can advocate for themselves. And of course, we still need people to advocate for their rights and inclusion in society, but it is so incredibly important that we also allow them to use their own voices and give them those necessary tools to do so.
I agree. And it's all about working together as a team.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of experience working with different organizations. And one of the most successful organizations you've worked with is the Special Olympics. Megan here also works with Special Olympics of Pennsylvania, so I'm sure she can share more about that as well. But can you tell us more about your involvement with your initiative or just your experience with the Special Olympics of Alaska?
Yeah, so my involvement began about 14 years ago when my brother first became eligible to become an athlete. So Special Olympics athletes can be 7 years old up until however old. But when my brother turned 7, that's when my family first decided to put him in some sports and Special Olympics. And that's really when we all started to become involved. And the interesting thing is that my dad and my mom were also coaches long before my brother was born. My mom actually emceed the World Games when they were held in Alaska in 2001 when she was pregnant with me. So I like to tell people that, I attended my first World Games when I was in the womb in 2001 in Alaska. I always think that's kind of funny. But since then, I have been very fortunate that I've been able to be a coach, a volunteer, and as mentioned before, I was the president of the largest partners club in Alaska at Service High School when I was a senior there. So in 2019, I led that partners club, and it was great. I mean, the program had an upwards of like 200 members, and it was a really big program. And I think that a lot of our school community was kind of built around that program. And one of the really neat things that I got to do was apply my school to become a national champion school for Special Olympics. And that was a really neat experience getting to work with Special Olympics Alaska to earn that recognition for my school, because there weren't any schools in Alaska at the time who had that honor and that recognition. And so when we finally did receive word that we were being named a national banner school, it was really neat. And we also found out that ESPN had reviewed all of the applications, and they had listed Service High School as one of the top 30 schools in the nation for inclusion. So that was just a really fulfilling moment to kind of see all of that hard work that we had put into making that inclusive community in our school. It was really great getting that recognition, and we had, like a school-wide assembly celebrating our Partners Club and our students that are in the life skills class. And it was really, really neat seeing even students who aren't in Partners Club, cheering on our students in the life skills class and cultivating that inclusive community. And so that was a pretty big honor.
That is incredible. And that makes my heart so happy because, schools do need those programs that integrate both disabled and non-disabled students so that the more exposure, the better that they can understand one another. And also to realize that they have so many more similarities than they have differences. So that's what I personally love about the Special Olympics is the Unified Champion Schools program allows that relationship building aspect between typically developing students and neurodivergent students. So I think that that's amazing. And what an accomplishment. Congratulations to have your home school and back in Alaska being able to uplift that program to the caliber that it is now. So my next question for you, and this can be related to your social impact with Special Olympics or not, but what has been your favorite appearance as Miss Alaska so far?
Yeah, so I would have to say that my favorite appearance was getting to work at Camp Shriver over the summer. So Camp Shriver is a camp through Special Olympics, and actually I think that Alaska is one of the few states that still has a Camp Shriver, but it is a summer camp, and the way that Special Olympics started was when Eunice Kennedy Shriver had a 2-week sports camp in her backyard for people with intellectual disabilities, and that's how Special Olympics evolved. So it's kind of cool that Special Olympics still has this Camp Shriver in honor of Eunice Kennedy Shriver and all the work that she did. But it's a 2-week sports camp for high school students with intellectual disabilities and without intellectual disabilities, and students from all over Alaska come together to learn new sports. I think every day we do like 2 or 3 different sports, and it's really, really cool because all of these students come from different areas of the state, and they all come from different schools, and so getting to watch them build those meaningful connections is just so inspiring. And knowing that these kids are, our future and that they're already dedicated to making the world a better place just gives you so much hope. And yeah, as you were saying, Megan, I think it's so incredibly important to put this focus on our younger generation, which is why I've been very fortunate that I've been able to speak to partners clubs within schools and school programs, because those are the students that I know are going to be able to make the most impact. If we teach them how they can be leaders of change in their communities, then we're going to definitely see that change in the future. But yeah, getting to work with Camp Shriver over the summer was a really neat experience, and I'm so glad that there's so many high school students who are just so excited about getting to participate.
That's awesome. I never knew some of the history behind the Special Olympics, but I feel like I've learned something today. That was amazing. And actually, I actually had a follow-up question from earlier. What events did your brother compete in?
Yeah, so the cool thing about Special Olympics is that there's over 30 different Olympic style sports. And my brother has tried, honestly, quite a few of them. So his main sport is track and field. That's the one that he started doing when he was really little. And then he's also done basketball. He's also done horseback riding, which is so crazy that horseback riding is even a sport. But yeah, Special Olympics has horseback riding, which he's competed in. He's also done powerlifting, which was a big change for him. He's never, done that kind of thing with weights before, but he really liked powerlifting. They had them all up on the stage, and all the girls are cheering in the audience. I think that really helped. He really liked powerlifting, so we did that for a few years. He also did swimming, but it was funny because when I became the coach for the Special Olympics Alaska swim team, he was still doing track and field at the time, but he decided, I'm going to do swimming this year so I can be with my sister. So I got to be his coach and boss him around for a little bit, so that was kind of fun. But yeah, there's so many different sports, and he really enjoys all the different sports that he can do. Oh, I also forgot to mention that he does skiing, downhill skiing in the winter. A big part of our winter sports is the skiing and the snowboard teams. So he usually does skiing in the winter, track and field in the summer, and then sometimes on the off seasons he tries other sports. But yeah.
Well, that's honestly so incredible. And he
Yeah.
sounds like such an open minded guy, someone who's just willing to try something to see if he likes it. And I think we need more people like Brendan in our lives. So, as we're kind of wrapping up, what are some of your favorite disability resources or organizations that you would recommend to our viewers who are either just searching for somewhere to become informed or somewhere where they can become more engaged with the community?
Yeah, so I feel like I have to say Special Olympics, mainly because I think one of the most important aspects of Special Olympics is that they really dig in to the idea of sports being a common ground that unite people and build communities. I think that that's really what Eunice Kennedy Shriver had in mind when she first started Special Olympics long ago, because she knew that especially in these younger generations, they they aren't holding these prejudices just yet, you know, and they just play their sports. It doesn't matter who they're playing with. And then before they know it, they're building up inclusive communities without even thinking twice about it. And so I think that that's one of the reasons I think Special Olympics is so incredibly important, is using sports as a common ground for inclusivity.
Yes, I love that. And there are so many skills that you develop, and you garner a lot of discipline and determination through sports. So I think anyone can benefit from it, but having an exclusive program that empowers people with disabilities and gives them a safe space to thrive. But then it also has this layer of pulling in people outside of the community too to get involved. And, you know, a lot of people might think Special Olympics, there might be an age range that they serve, but it's across a lifespan. So people can benefit it from birth all the way through their 90s, or, you know, they're still going at
Yeah.
any time. And I also wanted to mention to you, I don't know if you're familiar with her, but Loretta Claiborne, she was
Yes.
actually out of Pennsylvania from York, and I got to meet her a few
Oh,
weeks ago.
wow.
And yeah, and she has a movie, I think through Disney, they created a movie kind of commemorating her life and her contributions through Special Olympics. So that's another person that if you haven't connected with yet, I'm sure she would be so happy to
Yeah.
connect with you and share her resources. And then, you know, Eunice Kennedy Shriver and Loretta probably have a lot in common, being those pivotal members of Special Olympics.
Yeah.
So, what is one message that you would like to leave our viewers with that they remember from our conversation today as we wrap up?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is just to remember that we are on the brink of an inclusion revolution, and we've seen so much positive change over the years. And although we aren't quite there yet, it is important that we remember that all of these great things have been happening because of people who are standing up for what they believe in, because of people who are advocating for what they believe is right. And I think that it's so imperative that we don't lose sight of that light at the end of the tunnel. Despite how incredibly hard it can get, because we really are so close. And then something else that I forgot to mention earlier about Special Olympics is that there are so many other resources other than the sports aspect of Special Olympics. I know you were both involved in healthcare, but Special Olympics has the Healthy Athletes program. And so before the summer games in the summer and the winter games, athletes actually go through screening processes, and they can get necessary health care that they need, because people who have intellectual disabilities tend to be incredibly underserved, especially when it comes to healthcare. And so Special Olympics offers those other services that are incredibly needed for that community. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I have a follow-up question. So here in Pennsylvania, we have the polar plunge. Does that also happen in your chapters up in Alaska?
Yes, we do have the polar plunge, and I think I've done it almost every year. I'm actually getting ready for the polar plunge this year again. I always wonder how they do it in warmer states, because the whole point of the polar plunge is kind of jumping in that freezing cold water. I know that they do it in, like, obviously it's pretty cold for you in Pennsylvania, but I know that, like, in Florida and I think in California they do it too. I think they just kind of run into the beach. But yeah, it's a pretty big event here in Alaska. They cut out. There's this one lake that we do it at every year, and they cut out the ice, and we jump into the ice, and there's like scuba divers on the other end helping you get out, and then you jump into the hot tubs after. It's such an iconic event, especially for Special Olympics Alaska, and I'm really excited to do it this year. I don't know if you guys have ever done it or if you're going to plan on doing it.
Yes, I've done it, but I'm really jealous because we did not have access to hot tubs after.
Oh, really? Oh, no.
No, so in Pennsylvania, it's at least my chapter, Blair County, we have it at Canoe Creek State Park, and they also, it's cold enough that they have to cut out the ice most years too.
Ah,
And then they have like a changing area, but it's actually better when you stay out in the sun after you've done the dive.
okay.
But then once you go inside to change, that's when you really feel cold. And we don't have hot tubs. But I wanted to bring that up because there are different programs through Special Olympics and fundraisers like the Polar Plunge. And last year they didn't have it in person because of COVID. They did the Polar Pop, where you just pop a balloon over your head. But anyways,
That's awesome.
yeah. So they've had to get very innovative, as we all have had to adapt. But the reason I say that is if there's any followers here that are interested in getting involved in those programs, the fundraising that happens goes to coaching and equipment for the athletes. That way it's at no cost to them personally. So, but thank you so much for sharing your tidbits of information with us as well. And we're just so excited to continue to follow your year of service as Miss Alaska, especially since you're doing amazing things for the disability community. So thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts. And if you all watching and listening enjoyed this episode as well, you can learn more about Emma's year of service as Miss Alaska by looking at her Instagram and Facebook at Miss America AK. Thank you, everyone, and we will see you next Sunday.
Thank you for listening to Spectrum Sundays. We are your hosts, Francesca D'Alessandro, Miss Thousand Islands.
And Miss Pennsylvania, Megan Sinisi. Please make sure to subscribe to our series and follow us on social media to stay connected to autism professionals and self-advocates.
And remember, true impact is accomplished through active listening and exploring the world through a variety of perspectives.
Join us next week on Spectrum Sundays to help cultivate a community of inclusion, appreciation, and acceptance around autism.